Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pounding the Table Fantasy Sports Edition. I'm here back with James Alberino at SpreadInvestor on Twitter. We are super excited to talk through week 2 of the NFL, talk through some fantasy matchups that we're taking a look at with Jock Market. We'll go through the entire slate here today of week 2 games. Download Jock Market today and join us. The promo code is POUND. You'll get a 100% deposit match. And it's absolutely exhilarating. It's really a mix, again, of fantasy sports and the stock market all in one. So welcome back, James. I'm excited. It's Friday. We are complete freaks. It's Friday night and we're doing podcasts. So welcome back, man.
I love it, man. You know, injury reports come out in the NFL usually around this time. So you get some line movement late afternoon, and some games you get a good feel at this time which way it's going to go based on some injury reports and who's in, who's out. So I'm excited. It feels a little bit more like the middle of the season than it should be. I feel like I'm in like a couple weeks in, more so than the NFL just starting last week.
Yeah. Well, it was like so much anticipation, as we talked about last week, that it was like, holy shit, we got another week coming up now. It does feel like there was so much momentum last week, so much excitement. And then, you know, last night's game penalty that kind of changed the outcome. And we're talking about, of course, the Chiefs versus Chargers here. But you took the Chargers on that one, right?
I did. I had the Chargers +4, so I needed that late touchdown to hit it.
Sweating there at the very end.
And it shouldn't have been, man. I mean, if you watch that game in full, the Chargers had a double-digit lead. The defensive pass interference in the first half, I thought it was terrible. I thought the interception that got overturned was bad, too. There were definitely some fluky calls. But I'll say this, and as I'm saying this, Justin Herbert 15 minutes ago, he's got a rib injury that might keep him out a couple weeks.
Okay.
So knows how it's not long-term, but it's going to be a little bit of an issue. That said, though, the Chargers defense is legit, man. They might be the best.
Yeah, they're good.
Buffalo, the Bills are right up there with them, but I think the Chargers corners might be even better with J.C. Jackson and Asante Samuel. I can't wait to see the Chargers defense play the rest of the season. That was one of the worst games I've seen from Patrick Mahomes, especially in the first half. He got it going later on, but there's very few teams. The Broncos a couple of years were able to do it to him, where they were able to rush 4 and get to him.
Well, it's probably similar with Von Miller and Khalil Mack. Like they can't handle that.
The Broncos were one of the few teams that could get to Mahomes, and now you have the Chargers. They're going to see them again. I can't wait for that game in November.
So I know a lot of times the secondary could look better if they have a really good D-line, right? Because there's not a lot of time to throw, so there's less time that they have to go and cover the receivers. So inherently the inverse happens, right? Where the secondary is very good and they are covering receivers, so it gives the D-line time here. So do you think this is kind of just a situation where, you know, both the D-line and the secondary is good, or the secondary is looking a little bit better because they got Khalil Mack and Bosa breathing down the QB's neck here?
No, the front four is obviously really good, but the secondary is strong. J.C. Jackson, really strong cover. Asante Samuel's really good. Bryce Callahan and Derwin James, his entire career, has limited Travis Kelce. He's a big safety. He's fast. This is one of the most complete defenses I've seen in a couple of years.
What week is that they rematch up again?
The rematch is middle of November. I think it's the week before Thanksgiving. So we got a little bit of time, but it means it's going to be more meaningful football at that point.
Yeah, no, that would be good. All right, let's run through the slate. We're going to start off here with the Jets at Cleveland Browns. Line is -6.5 for the Browns. We still got the QB. Watson's still not in there right now. It's going to be kind of a boring game. I was looking at the under 40s. You know, that's a small amount of points, though.
I'm not betting this game, but there's a couple of interesting variables that are different from most other games if you are considering betting this. First off, Cleveland's playing Thursday Night Football next week versus Pittsburgh. So that is always on the coach's mind for the game prior when he's thinking about how many snaps he's going to play guys, second half especially. If there is a lead in the game, if it's double digits, he might be quicker to go to the backups to avoid injury or just to rest guys because they only have 3 days in between this game and the Thursday Night Football game. The Jets are not as bad as they looked last week. Their defense has a lot of pieces. If you just look at their depth chart, they have a ton of pieces in the front seven. And if they gel, they'll be a pretty good defense as the year goes on. Offense is obviously shaky with Joe Flacco. He's going to have a big challenge going up against Cleveland's speed. That's going to be a problem. I'm not comfortable betting the Jets, so I'm passing on them, and I'm not comfortable laying the 6.5 for the fact that I don't think Cleveland's offense is very explosive, and the Thursday Night Football game versus Pittsburgh division game being on deck.
And that under is just too low at 40.
Almost margin for error. It opened at 43.5. It's down to 39.5. I mean, if you were to play a total, you go under or nothing, but it's a slim margin for error. There's probably going to be some pretty good field position in this game. That's the thing when it's funny when you bet an under where the total is really low. It means the defenses are both really good. You got to be careful that the field position for the offense isn't going to be close to midfield the whole game and decent opportunities to score.
Before we jump to the Commanders versus the Lions here, I think that's just a key topic to think about, right? Is like when you see high overs, like can we expect a lot of passing and receivers and QBs will do better in terms of props or, with Jock market. And then in the inverse again here, if it's an under, like should we expect huge games from like Nick Chubb? Is Breece Hall going to like finally, make some moves and make a splash here in game 2? Because we saw James Cook. We talked about this last week. He got one carry, fumbled it, and then he got pulled pretty much more or less, right? And so Breece had a better game than that, but there's nothing. He's on my fantasy team. I didn't see anything. I think he got like 8 points maybe. So you see a bigger game from him or bounce back for Chubb had a good game. Do you think he's going to have a big game here?
I don't know, man. Cleveland's front's really tough. If the Jets can't do anything in the pass game, Cleveland's really going to put the pressure and load up the box and make it tough for the Jets' run game. I feel like we're going to watch two turtles button heads in this game. It's going to be ugly football, and I'm not sure how many explosive plays we'll see.
All right, let's stop talking about them. I agree. That's probably the least exciting game of the week. Sorry, Browns or Jets fans that are listening here.
Leading off with the Jets.
So the Commanders, they look good. They were surprised a little bit from last week. They got Dotson, who's the rookie now, obviously, McLaurin. And is it McLaren? I never know how to pronounce his name, by the way. McLaurin. And Gibson looked good. So they're going into Lions, which is, they're in the division with the Vikings, but I got to say, like watching their coach, watching the hype and like the underdog mentality of these guys, it's kind of fun to watch. They do play pretty hard. And this will be an interesting game, I think. At home, Lions -1.5 is the line. What should we know about this? Like, is there major injuries or concerns? I know last week you were talking about like the linebackers were out. There's some concerns in the secondary.
So when Detroit is fully healthy, they have issues with cornerback depth and their linebackers. So they're definitely susceptible to running back passes out of the backfield and running backs is being mismatched against slower linebackers. This week, they have some injuries at corner, some injuries on the offensive line. I think Washington's the right side in this game, and I was not high at all on Washington coming into this year, but they're going to have a better offense than people expect. It's not just overreacting to last week. They do have 3 fast receivers, as you were mentioning. Curtis Samuel's in the mix, too, with Dotson and McLaurin. McLaurin's really fast. Samuel's really fast. These guys all could create after the catch a lot of yards. The offensive line's pretty good. And defensively, their front four is good. I don't like the back end of their defense. So you could see Detroit move the ball a little bit, but I don't see how Detroit's going to stop Washington very much. And this, even though I'm not high on the guy, far from it. I bet against him last week. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz, his prop total over 240.5 yards. I think he's going to be throwing a lot. Jock market, I think he's a good play this week. Detroit, every week should be circled as a team to go against and play prop overs.
Interesting. So who do you like on the receiving end of that? I mean, is there a specific receiver you think?
Maybe Curtis Samuel. I think he had a good game last week. Him and Dotson both. You could look. Dotson had that big touchdown at the end. I think Wetzel looked both of their ways in this game.
They got Chase Young coming back. I think he was out for the first 4 weeks. Then they got that running back who unfortunately got shot. So he was out for – do they have a time frame for when he gets back too?
Just started running in drills yesterday, 18 days after he got shot, which was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. I've been out longer from Charlie horses.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
he got shot
20 minutes ago out of bed.
I'm saying.
All right, we got the Buccaneers at the Saints. So we talked about the Saints pretty in depth last week's episode. They came back. That was a pretty wild game. Back and forth, back and forth. Saints did they cover? I know they won the game.
They didn't cover. They just won.
Okay, so they
were money line parlay.
They won the game, and now they're at home this week. I'm seeing -2.5 Buccaneers at Saints with the over under 44. So my gut, and maybe I'm biased because I was listening to you and getting high on the Saints here. I like the Saints money line at home with Tommy hurt.
I'm not sure how I'm betting this game. The only way I would be on the Saints side. I think it's going to be really closer than some of the other matchups in the past. The thing you got to know coming into this game is Brady in the regular season with Tampa is 0-4 versus the Saints. The Saints have had success versus him because similar to what the Chargers did to Mahomes last night and how you beat most great quarterbacks, you have to be able to rush 4 and get pressure on the quarterback without blitzing. So the Saints defensive line's really good. They could get a lot of pressure with leaving their defensive backs in the secondary. The thing I would say to caution people about running to the window for the Saints is the Bucs running game looked really good last week. Even though it's against the Cowboys and the Cowboys aren't a great team, the defense is really good. The defense is really fast, and it's fast on all 3 levels. And the Buccaneers were able to really run the ball down their throats, consistently move the ball. Now, the Bucs weren't good in the red zone, and if the Bucs played a better offense last week, that would have been a different game. The Saints do have that better offense, and even though they didn't look good in the first half last week versus Atlanta, once they shook off the early season rust, the second half, they dialed up. Really good plays. Winston looked good. No surprise. He's so much better with New Orleans coaching, even without Sean Payton, because most of their coaches have been there for years with Sean Payton. And the Saints have a lot of really good weapons. Michael Thomas back in full form. Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, a first rounder from Ohio State. So it's a really, really good roster. I can't wait to see this game because I think it's going to be really close. It dropped below 3 because you got Chris Godwin's out. There's another big injury for Tampa.
Well, Brady was saying he's going to play, obviously, but he was getting beat up, and who knows, what they tell the media, but he's getting up there in age. So I'm sure it'll feel good getting hit by these 300-pound guys day in and day out.
And Tampa Bay is going to be on top of all their offensive line injuries. Their left tackle now, Donovan Smith, he got hurt last week. He's officially ruled out. Brady's going to get rid of this ball really quick. He's not going to give the Saints many chances to let their pass rush just get to him. He's not going to sit in the pocket for more than 2.5 seconds most times. There's going to be very quick releases. If the total hadn't dropped, if you were able to get this earlier when it was 47, it's a great under. Now it's down to 44. It's a little bit too low. But this is going to be get the ball out of his hands fast, defensive-minded game. I don't think there's much margin for error on either side if you bet this game. I will say the on-paper measurables add up in the Saints' favor with everything that I just said, and then also the Bucs coming off a road Sunday night football game, which means they get back really late Sunday night. So Monday prep, they're getting back. They're starting it up later, whereas the Saints had more time. They finished earlier. They didn't have to travel back-to-back on the road. So Tampa's definitely got some disadvantages, but I wouldn't overconfidently, I should say, put money on the Saints this week.
Yeah. I circled this one as the Saints right away, but I'm probably a sucker. I was listening to you and got real hyped on the Saints last week.
Not sucker bet. Public's all on Tampa Bay, so if you bet the Saints,
I think everything's lining. I have Saints money line in a few things.
I'm not taking you off. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I definitely won't talk you out of it. And they're a great teaser leg too. Get them up to 8.5.
That's interesting. So yeah, so obviously the key numbers being 3, 7, 6, 8.5.
Above a touchdown, low scoring game, division game, probably
Yeah.
close in the fourth quarter.
Julio Jones, I want to just a quick touch on it. Is he back? I thought when I was watching on Red Zone for the few plays.
I'm pretty sure the latest is he's questionable. The only one ruled out wide receiver is Chris Godwin for the Bucks.
I meant more like is Julio? I mean, he's not going to be.
Oh, is he back?
Old. I meant like
Figuratively speaking, is he back?
Yeah, I mean, comeback player of the year. He got that shot here.
I wouldn't bet on it because the Bucks have so many weapons and the ball is going to be spread out. I don't think the days of Julio getting close to 1,500 yards or more are done. Especially with the offensive line injuries, the game plan that Tampa Bay is going to have is just get the ball out quick. You're not going to see many 40, 50-yard shots down the field.
Now we're at the G-Men. All right, we got the Panthers at the Giants. Giants -2. Over under I'm looking at is 43. Saquon, blast from the past. I got him in one of my fantasy leagues, and he looked fresh, man. So, obviously I'm never very excited about the Giants offense, Daniel Jones at the helm, but Saquon looked pretty good. Carolina's D, I actually like their D.
I really like the way the Giants play. Saquon, if we're talking about someone being back, Saquon's back. He looked really good. He's playing with an attitude. He's finally got an offensive coordinator who has some balls, and it's just a completely different vibe with the Giants culture. This is an unbettable game for me because I think it's too close to call.
Yeah.
The Giants won. They needed to come back in the second half. They looked shaky in the first half. Yeah, you're going to get solid coaching from the Giants this year, something that they haven't had in 8 years. Eight years. It's ridiculous that a team with that big of a Super Bowl run.
Are they your squad, by the way?
They're my team. I was at both parades. I was at 2008. I was at the parade in 2012. I was living in the city at the time, and I soaked it all in. And then 2014 came, and they got rid of Tom Coughlin because of some egos getting hurt in the front office, and the Giants reap what they sowed. They hired some awful head coaches.
It's the Giants old coach.
He's a good guy, but I mean, shit. Shermer was bad too. He's a good offensive coordinator, bad head coach, and the Giants front office has been the equivalent of that corporate America office who just hires old men because they're the safe blue chip who could get the job done and they have good ideologies. And it's like, dude, you're hiring guys that are so not in tune with the current state of the NFL. And Joe Judge, who's the typical example of everything I'm talking about.
You buy David Tyree a drink ever?
Would I buy him if I knew him and ran into him? Yeah.
Pretty sure that guy could get a free drink anywhere in New York he wants.
Oh, I'd buy him drinks the entire night.
New England at the Steelers. TJ Watt. I tweeted out as soon as I saw I got hurt. He could mouth that. He's like, I tore my packet right away. He knew.
Yep, that sucked.
So that sucks for the Steelers because I thought they were kind of a team that could sneak up on people this year, but obviously with TJ Watt, that defense takes a hit. Patriots. They played at Miami. They were at Miami last week, right?
They were at Miami last week, so this is a back-to-back road game for them.
Back-to-back road game. This one's tough for me, too. I kind of lean here on the Patriots. No reason why, though. Besides TJ Watt being out, the defense is a little shaken, probably. Love to hear your thoughts, though.
So Pittsburgh's defense still has a lot of pieces, even without TJ Watt. They had 6 sacks last week. 5 of them weren't from Watt. Now, granted, when Watt plays, he gets so much attention that it opens it up for other guys. But Alex Highsmith had 3 sacks. They still have Cam Hayward, who's a beast, Miles Jack. The secondary is really good with Micah Fitzpatrick. The really interesting variable in this game is Brian Flores is on the defensive side coaching for Pittsburgh. He was on New England's staff forever. He was in the AFC East for a couple of years after that with the Dolphins. He knows New England very well. I'm very confident that Pittsburgh's defense is going to have a good game this week and against New England's offensive line, an offense which did not play smooth at all. And we had the Dolphins last week, so that was no surprise. New England didn't look good. I think it's a little bit more of the same. It's not going to be easy. That said, New England's defense looked really good, and they made it tough for the Dolphins. I know the score didn't really indicate that, and Tyreek Hill had some big plays, but New England had a good defensive game, and Miami scored on a turnover and that 4th and 7 play that kept the drive going. I think that was a touchdown after that. One thing that worries me for Pittsburgh, aside, because I'm less worried about TJ Watt being out, honestly, than this, is the fact that they do play on Thursday Night Football. It is a division game, which is a lot more important than this game for them. Yeah. And they're coming off a really emotional overtime game against a division opponent where they played extra snaps. So it's a sandwich between division games, playing extra, a lot of emotion. This is another game. This reminds me of the Saints-Bucks game where it's going to be lower scoring, close to the number. I don't see much margin either side. I may end up passing. I really, really want to bet Pittsburgh because there's a lot of things that make me think that Pittsburgh is in a good spot here. Tomlin's awesome as an underdog.
Last 5 at home, they're tough.
14-3-1 against the spread as a home dog. That's for his career. The last 5 years as an underdog, home or road, he's 21-8 ATS. So this is like usually for me personally, when I'm in a situation where I think it's close to the number, but I'm leaning towards one side, if the numbers make sense, I'll tease it up. Again, I like teasing up and getting a defensive dog above a touchdown.
What was it? Is it at 1 or 2.5? I see it.
2.5. 2.5.
From 1. It started off at 1. Okay.
And you're going to hear a lot of sharps on New England, but thing to know, a lot of sharps were on New England last week. They like something about the analytics with New England, and it's less about Bill Belichick than it is. There's some sharp money. He's going to be betting New England early a lot this year, and that might be justified as the year goes on, but I don't buy it early in the year.
I actually would have leaned here on the over 40.5.
I mean, it's so low that it might go over, but
that's about the same line as the Brown. And maybe I'm just thinking about it poorly, but the Brown,
we are
that same number. It's like
there's a couple of games this week where the game flow is very similar.
Colts and Jags. So the Jags, we were talking about the Jags and New Orleans quite a bit last week.
Yeah.
Jags, that was a crazy game too. They ended up not covering. They were not covering for a while. Then they came back, looked good. And then they ended up choking kind of there at the end. And then another team, Colts. that was a fucking wild one versus Texans. That ended in a tie, but the Colts were down massive the entire game, and then they came back here and knocked me out of one of my Survivor leagues there. But Colts are -4 here. Over under is at 47 at the Jaguars. This is tough for me. My heart says Colts, but I had to take a second and really think about this one.
I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but this is another one where it's division game, lower scoring, and there's on paper factors to like the Jaguars, but it's going to be tough to get to the window and bet them. The on paper factors I'm talking about, the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. They play them every year. Division opponent, they lose almost every year to them. Jacksonville Heat in September, although I think tomorrow is not going to be too bad. It's going to be low to mid 80s, so it's not brutal.
2014 was the last time they won? In
2014, if you remember last year, that's how the Colts got knocked out. Jaguars beat them in week 17. So there is a little bit of that revenge. You knocked us out of the playoffs, which is part of the reason why I think it's tough to bet Jacksonville in this game. The other thing against Indianapolis is it is a back-to-back road. So does
that matter as much early in the season?
Look, early in the season it matters less, but here's why I think it is a big deal and why people don't talk about it as much. Like when you hear about a team flying cross country or back-to-back road, think of Think of the typical New Yorker who doesn't study much about these games and is just like, it just talks off the cuff. Oh, bro, they fly in really comfortable conditions. They got everything on those planes that they need. Okay. But would you rather be in the air flying or on the practice field or in a meeting room with all your guys and talking? On the planes, these guys are playing cards. They're bullshitting. They're not in a meeting room and all the way tuned in to, so why I think back-to-back road in any sport is a big deal is because Indianapolis has to travel back from Houston last week. So instead of sitting home and getting their rest and getting ahead early on prep, they got to fly back to Indianapolis. Now they got to fly from Indianapolis down back to Jacksonville. So if you're playing a team that's sitting at home while you're flying, it is a difference in prep. So it's more mental. Yes. So the average Joe is, yes, the physical toll isn't that big of a deal. It's the preparation. It's like studying for a test. If two guys are equally smart, one guy studies for 10 hours, one guy's only able to study for 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
You got to be a fucking genius to outsmart that guy.
Unless you got Adderall. Then you're,
Yeah. There's a shortage of Adderall. So
yeah, there is a shortage.
It might be tough this week. But getting back to the point of this game, and I hate starting off with so many games that I'm like, this is a tough one, and I'm probably passing. But this is another one I think it's going to be close. Jacksonville showed a lot of youth last week. They showed a lot of promise at points, but their offensive line was shaky at points. The secondary was shaky at points. Trevor Lawrence didn't look that good beyond his first and second read.
He missed Travis at the end, like on a.
They would have won the game probably if he hits that. So yeah, Jacksonville, I can't trust them. It's a typical textbook spot, home dog division versus back-to-back road. Okay, take the points. And sharps are on Jacksonville. It dropped to 3 from 4. Darius Leonard's out for a second week.
He is out. Okay.
Michael Pittman's out. So Indianapolis at wide receiver.
Wait, Pittman's out?
Pittman, I'm going to double check. He was doubtful. I'm going to double check to see if he's out.
Got him on bad. They're going to check this. I'll miss practice. That would not be good. Yeah, you're right. He's questionable right now.
Okay, questionable. I gotta check the latest.
He had a game though last week. I mean, he looked really good, and he was like everything I thought he was going to be. But that's not good if he's getting hurt here early.
Yep.
So that would be pretty impactful, I think, because then they can just zero in kind of on Taylor, put eight people in the box all the time.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, so that's definitely something to monitor over the weekend.
You think Trevor Lawrence bounces back and has a better game this week? Colts D is probably even a little bit better than last week now.
Colts defense is better than Washington, so that's why I'm not quick to jump on.
Do you have a lean either on the line or the total here?
I would lean Jacksonville, but I don't trust them. I need to see, young teams need to close out a game before you could really trust them on a short line, in my opinion. I don't think the Jaguars are there yet. I could see the Colts covering this, even though it's not a great bet.
People were pretty high on the Colts and coming out week 1 and pretty much getting blown out by the Texans and then finally coming back to tie them. I was pretty surprised. I had them as one of my survivors, and that was not so fun. I'd probably lean Colts here as well. Dolphins, Ravens. I think this should be a fun game. This is -3.5 for the Ravens and 44.5 for the over/under. Ravens are at home here. Dolphins, I thought they looked good last week. Have some explosive players. I got Dolphins straight up winning this game. Talk me off the edge here.
I want to bet the Dolphins. I have a couple concerns with them. They haven't won in Baltimore since the 90s. Now, granted, they don't play there every year, so it's not that big of a deal. It's not like they played there 24 years in a row and are 0-24. But they have struggled every time they've gone to Baltimore. The other thing was, as good of a game and as sexy as the highlights looked for Miami last week, and I was on them, so I would like to keep riding them if they're in good spots. Their run game was really, really not good last. New England really stuffed their run, and that's supposed to be one of the Dolphins' strengths with Chase Edmonds, with Raheem Mostert. I think they rushed for under 3 yards a carry combined for the game. It was a lot of the offensive line. I don't fully trust Miami's offensive line. Now, Baltimore is going to be down a few cornerbacks, it looks, this game. Their secondary has been hit by a couple of injuries. So I think Baltimore is going to blitz the shit out of Miami. I think they're going to try to put a lot of pressure on Tua, not give him chances to get the ball down the field and have those big shots. I think the key to this game is going to be turnovers. My lean is Miami. Haven't bet it. Just going to be a fast-flying defensive game. Which team makes less mistakes?
What games do you have circled? Because I feel like we've been
Atlanta. Let's get to that.
Let's jump ahead to one that you circled early on in the week.
I bet Atlanta early in the week. I bet it at plus 11. I gave it out at 10 and a half because some books had already dropped from 11, and I just want to do the right thing and not give a number that's only like 20% available. I like Atlanta. Atlanta's going to be competitive this year.
What's it at, 9 now? Or sorry, I'm looking 11. It's 11 or 10 and a half.
10 pretty much across the board. 10 and a half at WinBet, which doesn't take much action. This was over the summer, which most books take low limits over the summer if you're betting an advanced line, 13 and a half. So professional money has poured in on Atlanta. Mariota, outside of a turnover in the red zone, looked good last week. He was moving the ball, running a ton, always difficult with a good mobile quarterback. And with this offense, Kyle Pitts is 6'6". He was a stud in college. Drake London was a stud in college too, a wide receiver, 6'4". They have size mismatches. Jalen Ramsey does not shadow a lot of wide receivers in this offense. So they're going to be able to get one of those guys away from him. I mean, they're going to have one of those guys away from him to begin with. I think there's going to be size mismatches down the field in Atlanta's favor. Troy Hill's only 5'11" for the Rams.
I was just looking right away after the game one. You know, they kind of got embarrassed. I think they're going to come out against a shitty, quote unquote, shitty team. Any players here that might be for Jock Market that could be interested in this game or any of the other games we kind of skipped over earlier?
Yeah, I would look at both of them, Pitts and London. I think Atlanta's offense is better this year than it was last year. So whatever he put up last year, I don't think is indicative of what he's going to do going forward. And Cordarrelle Patterson, they got a nice run game with him. Arthur Smith, the head coach, was the Titans offensive coordinator for Derrick Henry's prime. Mm-hmm. And they're a well-coached football team. They had a really good game plan versus the Saints. The Saints have a really good run defense and a great defense overall, and Atlanta was just pushing the ball on them. On the defensive side of the ball, Atlanta's front seven looked really good, especially early in the game versus New Orleans. They sacked Winston 4 times. In the secondary, they have A.J. Terrell, who's a really good cover corner, and Casey Hayward, who's another good corner. I don't see Atlanta getting blown out. I've had this team on my radar for a while because it's one of those teams, again, that they're not sexy in the market. They don't get talked about on NFL Network very much, but that's why they're double-digit dogs, and I think they're going to be competitive. I think the Rams have to find their footing. The Rams have some more offensive line injuries this week, and
they got exposed kind of as like, I mean, you can't really stop them anyways, even if you know it's coming to Cup, but like, it just looked like, you know, kind of how Kirk Cousins does with Jefferson, but like the same thing. He was just eyeing Cup every single play. And, you know, without Beckham, you know, do they get anyone back now this week? Is there some receivers?
Van Jefferson, who's their third wide receiver, is the guy to watch. He's out this week. So it's
when does he get back? Is he out a few weeks?
Week to week. It should be in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. I pull that one back. I had the Rams, but I think you might have talked me out of that one.
It's my number one play for the weekend as of right now. I don't think any other play on the board. I'm going to have more money on it than I do the Falcons. I think it's a 1-score game. I think everyone's in the revenge. They got embarrassed on national TV, and yeah, but it's hard to do
I
With
think
a
the
shaky
fact that
offense.
this game, when I first looked at it, Rams was the first one I circled. So I actually now like that even more. The fact that I always like try to bet against myself. I'm like, all right, I'm so bad that if I just take the opposite team that I want, then I'll win here. Seahawks, San Francisco at San Francisco -9 for the 49ers. After Seattle had a pretty good week. So I was actually a little surprised it was 9. I thought it would be closer to like 6.5 or 7.
Same.
But like, I don't know. 49ers, like, is Trey Lance, obviously, there's always hope that he's going to go and explode. But I didn't think he looked like that incredible last week to justify 9. But I don't know. Maybe you think differently.
Well, yeah, the game was in the rain, so he didn't look very good. This number, it opened close to double digits, so it pretty much stayed there. I don't see how you lay 9.5 comfortably with San Francisco. They're a run-first team. Now, they're going to look better. And of the two teams, them and the Rams, I do think San Francisco is a better team right now because I think 49ers have less questions defensively and on the offensive line. But
they just lost Mitchell, right?
Yeah, Mitchell's not going to be playing. So, yeah, to that point, I don't see how you lay it comfortably. If I'm playing this game, it's Seattle. I'm leaning Seattle. Seattle looked a lot better than expected. Obviously, they had a good game plan versus Russ, but the defense is fast. They got a better pass rush than I think they're projected. They got a pretty good run game. They still have good receivers. Metcalf and Lockett are really good. Geno Smith looks so much better than he did 5-7.
Yeah, he looked good. I mean,
Good,
they were fired up at home. They got Russ coming in town. Like, everyone had a little more chip on their shoulder, I think, national television. But like, he didn't look bad. He looks like it's finally like his team to like his first time he's ever walked in as a starter, I think. So
he also is carrying himself extremely humble, which if you're betting on them this year, it's good to know because it's like, all right, this guy clearly had some mishaps early in his career. He's matured. He's older. I think he's in his 30s now. So he's past a lot of the early career BS. And the risks in this game, if you're betting Seattle, they're coming off a short week, and there's a possibility of a hangover having such a big win like that Monday night. But division game, Pete Carroll being a really good coach, there's only one way to play this game, in my opinion. Even if San Francisco does cover the big number, you can't say that this is a good bet. You can't. They could win the game by 14, and still, it could be a shaky bet at -9.5. You're laying 9.5 with an unproven quarterback in the division, and Pete Carroll has had Shanahan's number. I think it's either 6-2 or 8-2 straight up against Kyle Shanahan in his career.
Yeah, Seahawks didn't look bad. I thought they were going to be the worst team by far.
They're going to be pesky. They're going to be pesky.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. Over-unders at 42. Talk me out of a teaser of +17 and 49.5 goes over 7 touchdowns.
I will talk you out of it because
teasers are dumb, and don't tell people to bet them.
No, teasers aren't dumb. Teasing totals are dumb.
Definitely.
I haven't teased a total since college.
I have there's like 13-point teasers, 4 teams. It looks so good on paper every time, and I think I'd probably lose 80% of those. So not worth it at all. Bengals, Cowboys. So Dak's out. Obviously, that like derails, it feels like, Dallas's season. Although I said that, and then last year, Cooper Rush, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, came in and destroyed my Vikings, which was embarrassing. But is he the backup right now still?
Yeah, he's the backup, and he's actually pretty good. He could throw the ball.
So this is at 7.5. Bengals obviously favored here at Dallas. What was it before Dak went down, like in the beginning of the season? Like
Dallas was -1. -1, I think it popped up to 2.5 points, and then shifted all the way to 7.
So is Dak 8 points, like whatever, 7, 8 points? Is he
closer to 10?
You're right. So
wild.
Is Dak 10 points? That is even that's even crazy.
Wild. There's two ways you got to look at it. There's one way where you say Dak isn't worth close to 10 points, which I wouldn't disagree with anybody who says that because it's ridiculous to swing him 10 points. The other side of the coin is Dallas was a 2.5-point dog, so that's where they were priced with Dak last week versus Tampa Bay, and they got blown out. Wasn't even close, wasn't competitive. So you can't just automatically look at it as, Dak's worth 10 points. No, it's Dallas was clearly not priced right. They got their asses kicked last week. They clearly should have been bigger dogs, even if on paper you say, they shouldn't have been 5-point dogs. All right, maybe they shouldn't have been 5-point dogs on paper, but they weren't even in the game. Second quarter, the game wasn't close at any point that you think the Cowboys were going to win with Dak. So This game, I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas does cover a 7.5-point line because their defense is really good, and I don't think Burrow is fully back. Now, he lost 20 pounds. He gained most of it back, but he had that appendectomy.
Yeah.
He's not in full – he
started slow last week. I mean, he threw like 2 picks.
Form. So the game plan for Dallas is going to be pressure Burrow, rush him, do whatever you got to do to hit him, test him. Let's see. Some of his throws didn't even have the full zip that it had last week. Part of that was the pressure that Pittsburgh was putting on him. I don't know if he was stepping into his throws as much in the pocket. But either way, it's not – you can't automatically bet the Bengals, and it's tough to make a case for Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would never feel good necessarily. That's one of those you bet on Dallas thinking that, let's bet against the public. I bet you, I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, but I'd imagine the Bengals are heavy public.
Over 90%.
But which is interesting because I've just noticed obviously markets like the Cowboys and the Packers I think have a pretty good following too. Is there a home field advantage just inherently with the amount of fans that Cowboys have? Do they tend to get a 0.5 point, do you think, just based off the amount of people that love the Cowboys, they just bet on them, so that pushes the number every single week, or not at all?
Yeah, there's definitely a Cowboys inflation. Now with Cooper Rush, obviously the pendulum swings the other way with as many people that love America's team. They're going to be panicking, and there's no Dak and yada, yada. So it's irrelevant for this game, but it's not a sexy game. And the total's too low to get involved on an under or first half under.
Broncos are -10 at home.
This is a game I'm looking to bet.
Embarrassed. I'm looking all over Broncos, but I'm sure you're going to say Texans here because, the Broncos, they look, everyone's so high on them, and maybe going back home, Russ got into his own head. I don't know. I used to be a Russ fan, but I'm kind of starting to fade from him, and I think he's a little overrated. But the Texans, I think, are underrated. They were surprising to me. Colts, I don't think are bad, and they were able to play with them. So 10 points, thinking of it like that. Now it's in Denver. Talk to me why you like the Texans clearly here.
I agree with you that the Texans are underrated on both sides of the ball. I think Denver can give them some problems. One area would be in the run game. I think Houston is a little bit vulnerable run defensively. The other thing I'm a little bit worried about is that Houston did play a lot of snaps last week because it was an overtime game. You factor that in with early season conditioning, going to the high altitude of Denver. It could lead to a little bit of trouble in the fourth quarter. So this might be a better first half play, but I still think there's a lot of cases to be made to play Houston +10. Denver's coaching staff, and this aside from the revenge against Russell, they are so inexperienced from the head coach to the offensive coordinator to the defensive coordinator. None of them have been at those positions professionally before. So this is all their first time. Now you get them on a short week, Monday Night Football. Tuesday and Wednesday, they are flooded with Nathaniel Hackett questions. Why'd you kick the field goal? Why didn't you do that? Why'd you do that? So aside from you're not talking about the game plan, you're constantly getting asked about this, and rightfully so. It was an awful, awful head coaching decision. But you got to cover double digits now against – I trust Houston's coaching staff a lot more than Denver's.
If you're Ross, it's game one, so it's like a little ballsy to say, "Fuck off, coach. I'm going for this." I know players have done that, and if you're, if you have the clout, sometimes you can get away with it. But because I was hearing a lot of people talking about this on different podcasts and hearing different opinions,
he's not going to do that. Look, Russ isn't that guy. He's good
right.
at teams. He's going to be the company guy and say all the right things. But what is
I think.
Here's what's very real. You got 53 plus guys in a meeting room with Nathaniel Hackett trying to sell him on a game plan for this week, when Nathaniel Hackett has a day and a half less of prepping himself and doing this the first time. There's going to be some doubt that creeps in, because you're like, all right, this is the same dude that just elected to kick a 64-yard field goal and blundered the entire late game situation. So I think there's going to be some doubt. They were so choppy with play calling. Granted, it's going to be different at home. It'll be cleaner. But Houston's got a pretty good secondary. Derek Stingley's really good. He'll be lined up against Jerry Jeudy. Jalen Petrie at safety is a really good young safety. He'll probably help over the top with Cortland Sutton. I like the matchups for Houston on the edge. Jonathan Greenard's really good. And Jerry Hughes is really good. He had an interception last week against Matt Ryan as a defensive end. And right tackle's an area where you can hit Denver. So if Denver's not so run heavy, I think they could get to Russ. They're going to have to just contain Russ scrambling. Denver's run defense.
I was just going to say, you got to mark these players down. Last week, you named both the Jaguars. You were talking about two, I think it was two rookies talking about defensive. I was like, you hate when I text you during the games. I know that. I was just like, dude, you just called literally both interceptions. You didn't call the interceptions, but we talked about both those players, and then two rookies got back-to-back interceptions, which is pretty cool to see.
Well, look, at the expense of diminishing my work. And, look, it's not coincidence. I watch coaches' press conferences every week. I listen to what they're saying, and a lot of what they're saying, even though they don't reveal their entire game plan and secrets, they leave crumbs. They talk about certain guys. They hype up certain guys. They downplay others. And at the end of it, you watch these over and over. At some point, you say, okay, this guy's going to have an impact on this game. This guy, there's definitely clues. So anything that I say about a certain player or a certain scheme, it's not speculation. Look, it'd be a lot easier for me to be like, yeah, man, and come off as playing the wizard role. And yeah, I you heard it here first. You heard it here first, Avi. I can't stand when I see that shit on Twitter. It's like, you heard it here first. Like,
that's
what?
Like everything I do, pretty much.
What?
I'm joking when I say it.
Like, brother, I guarantee you there's a lot of other guys that have your opinion. You're not some wizard, but yeah, it's a lot of my process is going into the game plans.
Listen, it's fun, and I think someone that's how I first found you again on Twitter a while back. But people like me go to Twitter and they trust the people that will write out why the game is going to be one way or the other, right? If you just say, let's go fucking Yankees, and you don't have I like seeing and hearing, the thought process behind it. So even if it's not correct, you've done your homework, right? I feel more confident with you guiding me, than just blindly going in, and I just hear it. There's so many players that are injured. I didn't think about you're naming all these players and I know a lot about sports, I think, but then when I talk to you, it's always interesting because there's defensive players, second string players that I have no idea about.
Yeah.
Cardinals at Raiders. Raiders are, I think, 5.5. It looks like so favorites. I like the Raiders, and that one actually surprised me. I thought it should have been closer to -3 maybe, and 51.5 for the over under. So, I like the Raiders, so I don't want to go against them and take the Cardinals here. But 5.5 is a lot. I feel like
this opened up Raiders -2.5 in the summer. It was -3.5 before week 1. And then immediately Sunday night, Monday, there was heavy bets coming in on the Raiders because the secondary for Arizona is terrible right now. They've got injuries. The offense wasn't in sync. They still have no DeAndre Hopkins. Rondell Moore's out for this game at wide receiver. So this moved, and betting it at 5.5 feels like a sucker move because, I mean, you could have got 3 points better early in the week. What I do like in this game, I got to check the VIG on this. I'm probably going to bet double result, halftime, full time on the Raiders, which for those of you listening who don't know what that is, it's for the Raiders to be leading at halftime and to win the game. Double result. Lead at half, win the full game. That's going to be closer to like a minus 125. So really, if you like them to win the game, it's really a bet.
Yeah.
It's really a bet on them to be leading at halftime. There's not going to be many people that argue they don't. And Allegiant Stadium, it's going to be the home opener for the Raiders. That place gets really loud, even though Vegas is a tourist attraction.
You go a lot of the games ever, or not?
I haven't been inside Allegiant yet. I've only been to Golden Knights games, which to be, I'm probably going.
That place is fun, too.
I'm probably going to that Week 4 Denver Raiders game. But why I bring up the Golden Knights, the fan base in Vegas, because they haven't had a professional team, the locals here are so passionate about the Raiders. It gets so loud. That game last year, the first home game for the Raiders last year was Monday Night Football versus the Ravens. That place was loud, man. It's a combination of the dome, the capacity. And
how long have you lived in Vegas? Before you were there before the Raiders, right?
I got out here March of 2020. I came out here the week of COVID, 2 days before everything got shut down.
And when did the Raiders come, though? Is that
their opening season was that year, 2020, September.
Okay. I was curious, and you might not know since it sounds like you guys started kind of the same time, but like the sense of community. Have you talked with people that have lived in Vegas and they like now have a team to, unify with?
No, 100%. Even though I wasn't here before time, I talked to a lot of locals here, and I asked, the vibe, and I asked questions similar to that. And it makes a lot of sense because they had nothing to root for before this.
Uh-huh.
And contrary to what a lot of people think, there is a lot of local life outside of just the Strip. Vegas has grown in the suburbs so much. Not that people
They're like nice houses. Yeah.
There's really nice houses, man. I just moved into Lake.
I live in a very nice.
It's Lake Las
Vegas. That's fair. That's cool.
Area. Summerlin's the area that Summerlin and Henderson are really nice areas out here. But the passionate fan base. I think this, even though you'll get a lot of Arizona fans that will drive up for this game, I think it'll be overwhelmingly loud when Murray has the ball in his hands.
We should get Las Vegas as a sponsor for this podcast.
I am definitely going to be tapping into the Vegas network for some sponsorships. You get a lot of guys that come travel out here for.
Yeah, man. I wish the Vikings were in that division. I'd go every year. Let's go we got Chicago versus Packers. So Bears at Packers, -10 Packers. We made them look silly last week. If Christian Watson catches that ball versus the Vikings, 7-7, the vibe changes, completely, I think. But after that drop, it was game over. Like we looked good. They looked bad, I thought. And now the Bears, who played a really sloppy game back versus the 49ers last week in the rain, you were talking about, coming in town. I actually like the Bears, but that's just my recency bias because I saw how bad the Packers look. And I think that they'll catch that 9 out of 10 times. And I think another week, practice with them. But I will say Aaron Rodgers looked completely checked out and wants to retire. And he retired, for what it's worth. I played a franchise of Madden. This year he retired in my Madden franchise. Not sure if that's an indicator of some sort, but probably.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
That
they look checked out though, right? Like
that drop. Rightfully so.
Right.
That drop changed the game from you playing with a lead against a really good offense to now you have to chase points the entire game. So you can't blame him. It was right in this guy's breadbasket. And
I felt bad for him. I was like, damn, dude.
I did. It's funny.
Not that the Bears are good in any stretch, but 10 points is a lot. I don't know.
I think both of these are true. I think the Bears are better than what people think, but I also think the Packers can cover this number because one, Allen Lazard's back. I think Bakhtiari and Jenkins are going to be back on the offensive line, so Rodgers is going to have much more time. I don't like laying 10, but I think Packers can cover this because they're not going to be playing from behind. Rodgers will find his mismatches, and
Packers D is good.
Packers defense is very good, and Packers offensively are going to be healthy this week.
All right. I'll take my Bears bet away as well. This is a good thing. I bet you I'll start winning a lot more because I usually suck. Titans at Bills, another 10. There's a lot of 10 spots this week. Over-unders at 49. Any lean on this one?
I'm not betting this game. I'm not. I will say the Titans are a very good team to be getting 10 points, but good defense, good pass.
49 seems high kind of here, no? I'd lean under, just gut feel, but that probably means to take the over then. I don't have a great feel for this game, to be honest. All right, let's skip it then because I want to spend a few minutes on the Vikings-Eagles. So Eagles at home. I may go to that game. That would be the only stadium I will not probably rock a jersey to. A little scared of that. I've heard they like chuck batteries at you and shit, so I'm too old for that. But if I do go, I probably end up wearing a jersey, and I am a Vikings fan, but Eagles -2 would kind of be my lean. I can't do that, of course, but I don't know. I think the Eagles look really good. You know what? Fuck it. I think the Vikings, actually. I'm going Vikings. That's my decision-making process, just back and forth based off like scenarios in my head of what could happen, and I'm going Vikings now. So give us some actual data.
I don't have a bet on this game, but someone I work with who I respect a lot, especially in the NFL, who was on the Seahawks last week, Steelers, and Texans as his 3 best bets, so he swept that. He's on the Eagles as one of his top plays this week. I don't want to go against I am very high on the Vikings this year. I told you that last week. I liked the Vikings last week against the Packers. So I'm not looking. I hate betting a game where I'm high on both teams because now I'm being forced to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot here. Kirk's kind of been able to shed this, like, he had like the Madden curse for primetime games. He was horrible on primetime games. He won that huge playoff game, which I was at in New Orleans, and he's I don't know if he's shaking it enough. So like, I don't love that it's a primetime game with Kirk. We do get Lewis Cine, a first look at Lewis Cine, which I'm fucking hyped about. That dude can hit. So it's going to be a wild game, but you won't go either direction on this one. I will over under.
I will lean Eagles because of Kirk Cousins' primetime history, but I think he's past the worst of it.
Yeah, we got Jay Jettas, dude. Jefferson's going to go off for like 2 touchdowns, 180 probably. Casual.
I can't bet against this offense, man. I really just like this.
Didn't even do anything last week. And Irv Smith did nothing last week.
I could see that going over too. Two offenses that want to throw the ball. I'm not going to be betting many unders that involve either of these two teams the entire season. I'll tell you that.
Oh, man. All right, I'm going Vikings. Any player props you like at all?
Carson Wentz over 240.5 yards. Back to what we were talking about, the Lions defense having a lot of holes. Mariota over 31.5 rushing yards. He had 72 last week. I think he ran either 12 or 10 times last week. He's fast as hell, man. It's going to be a big part of the offense.
Where are you going to college again?
Or Dameon Pierce over 42.5 rushing yards. Houston has said this week they want to get him more involved. I think they will. And Denver is susceptible against the run. And the only way that Houston's going to have a chance to win this game is if they run the ball successfully and try to keep it away from Russell Wilson. So I expect Pierce to get the rock a decent amount.
I'm going Devonta Smith against my Vikings. I think he's going to get 2 touchdowns and 86 yards exactly. So That does it. This is cool, man. Week 2. This is fun. Shout out again to Jock Market, half stock market, half fantasy sports. It's actually a boatload of fun. So come play. Promo code POUND, and that will get you 100% deposit match. So join us again here. This is fun though, James, and enjoy your dinner. I will do the same, and have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. And let's go Falcons.
Let's go Vikes.
All right, buddy.
See you, brother. Bye.